Welcome back, guys.
Welcome back. We're here again. We're gonna start a new series this month. It's called Double Dog Dare, where we'll face all the dares and challenges that are going on, and they're gonna show us how to be brave. We're gonna learn today about a story involving someone who observed God even when others didn't accept a special assignment or dare from God. The Bible story involves a pair of animals. Can you guess what the story is?
I think so.
All right. So, we're going to learn about someone who obeyed God, like I said, when nobody else was. And our big idea for this week is we can obey God
even when others don't.
All right. And this week, we have a lot of verses this week. We're going to be reading in Genesis. We're going to read chapter 6, verses 5 through 22, chapter 7, verses 1 through 24, and chapter 8, verses 1 through 22. So, here we go. Let's see. The Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, and he saw that everything they thought or imagined was consistently and totally evil. So the Lord was sorry he had ever made them and put them on the earth. It broke his heart, and the Lord said, I will wipe this human race I have created from the face of the earth. Yes, I will destroy every living thing, all the people, all the animals, the small animals that scurry along the ground, even the birds of the sky. I am sorry I ever made them. But Noah found favor in the Lord. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, the only blameless person living at the time, and he walked in close fellowship with God. Noah was the father of 3 sons. Now God saw that the earth had become corrupt and was filled with violence. God observed all this corruption in the world, for everyone on earth was corrupt. So God said to Noah, I have decided to destroy all living creatures, for they have filled the earth with violence. Yes, I will wipe them all out along with the earth. Build a large boat from cypress wood and waterproof it with tar, inside and out. Then construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. Make the boat 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Leave an 18-inch opening below the roof of all the way around the boat. Put the door on the side and build 3 decks inside the boat, lower, middle, and upper. Look, I am about to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy every living thing that breathes. Everything on earth will die. But I will confirm my covenant with you. So enter the boat, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring a pair of every kind of animal, a male and a female, into the boat with you to keep them alive during the flood. Pairs of every kind of bird and every kind of animal and every kind of small animal that scurries along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. And be sure to take on board enough food for your family and for all the animals. So Noah did everything exactly as God had commanded him. When everything was ready, the Lord said to Noah, Go into the boat with all of your family, for among all the people of the earth, I can see that you alone are righteous. Take with you 7 pairs, male and female, of each animal I have approved for eating and for sacrifice, and take 1 pair of each of the others. Also take 7 pairs of every kind of bird. There must be a male and a female in each pair to ensure that all life will survive on the earth after the flood. 7 days from now, I will make the rains pour down on the earth, and it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights, until I have wiped from the earth all the living things I have created. So Noah did everything as the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood covered the earth. He went on board the boat to escape the flood, he and his wife and his sons and their wives. With them were all the various kinds of animals, those approved for eating and for sacrifice, and those that were not, along with all the birds and all the small animals that scurry along the ground. They entered the boat in pairs, male and female, just as God had commanded Noah. After 7 days, the waters of the flood came and covered the earth. When Noah was 600 years old, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, all the underground waters erupted from the earth, and the rain fell in mighty torrents from the sky. The rain continued to fall for 40 days and 40 nights. That very day, Noah had gone into the boat with his wife and his sons and their wives. With them in the boat were pairs of every kind of animal, domestic and wild, large and small, along with birds of every kind. 2 by 2 they came into the boat, representing every living thing that breathes. A male and a female of each kind entered, just as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord closed the door behind them. For 40 days the floodwaters grew deeper, covering the ground and lifting the boat high above the earth. As the waters rose higher and higher above the ground, the boat floated safely on the surface. Finally, the water covered even the highest mountains on the earth, rising more than 22 feet above the highest peaks. All of the living things on earth died: birds, domestic animals, wild animals, small animals that scurry along the ground, and all the people. Everything that breathed and lived on dry land died. God wiped out every living thing on the earth: people, livestock, small animals that scurry along the ground, and the birds of the sky. All were destroyed. The only people who survived were Noah and those with him in the boat, and the floodwaters covered the earth for 150 days. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent the wind to blow across the earth, and the floodwaters began to recede. The underground water stopped flowing, and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the floodwaters gradually receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months from the time the flood began, the boat came to rest on the mountain of Ararat. 2.5 months later, as the water continued to go down, other mountain peaks became visible. After another 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the boat and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until the floodwaters on the earth had dried up. He also released a dove to see if the water had receded and if he could find dry ground. But the bird could find no place to land because the water still covered the ground. So it returned to the boat, and Noah held out his hand and drew the dove back inside. After waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. This time the dove returned to him in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Then Noah knew that the floodwaters were almost gone. He waited another 7 days, and then he released the dove again. This time it did not come back. Noah was now 601 years old. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the floodwaters had almost dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Leave the boat, all of you, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Release all the animals, the birds, the livestock, the small animals that scurry along the ground, so they can be fruitful and multiply throughout the earth." So Noah, his wife, and his sons and their wives left the boat. And all of the large and small animals, the birds, came out of the boat, pair by pair. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and there he sacrificed a burnt offering, the animals and the birds that had been approved for that purpose. And the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice, and said to himself, "I will never again curse the ground because of the human race. Even though everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood, I will never again destroy all living things. As long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night." All right, that was a lot of reading, so you might want to go back and reread it just to be sure, but I got some questions for you.
Okay.
All right, what was the dare or challenge Noah was given?
He was told to build a boat
All right, do you know why this happened?
because people were not following God's commands. God was heartbroken when he saw that the people he had created and loved were full of violence and disobedience. They weren't obeying him by loving others and doing what was right. Instead, they were living in sin. They were living for themselves. But
Right.
Noah found favor in God's eyes.
What did you notice about Noah that set him apart from everyone else?
He was righteous and lived a life that honored God
Why do you think it's important to Noah to live his life in obedience with God?
because God is his creator.
Do you think he lived this way because he wanted to earn God's favor?
No, Noah lived his life obeying God because he loved God.
All right. Do Do you think Noah might have been nervous when God told him to build the ark?
He might have wondered if people would make fun of him or get upset with him or think he was crazy. But Noah did what God wanted him to do, even when he was the only one following God. We can follow God too.
Do you ever feel like it's hard to do the right thing and obey God when others aren't?
We can be brave like Noah by obeying God even when others don't.
All right. All right, so God gave Noah very specific instructions on how to build the ark. Can you imagine how challenging it would have been if God didn't give Noah any instructions or Noah didn't follow the instructions? He might not have built something big or sturdy enough for his family and for all the animals. The ark may not have even floated. Noah knew that God knows what's best. God loved Noah and only gave him those instructions so he and his family and all the animals could be saved. Noah obeyed God's instructions and was able to build a huge, strong, sturdy boat that would float for a long time. All right, so now we've got another verse to read. It's Psalms 128:1. It says, "Blessed are all who fear the Lord, who walk in obedience to him." This verse says that we are blessed when we fear and obey God. What do you think this verse means by fear?
It's not a bad kind of fear. It means respect. Noah obeyed God even when others chose not to, and his family was blessed because of this obedience. Just like Noah, God loves us and wants to bless us. We can obey him even when others don't.
That's true. Sometimes God will ask us to do things we may not understand, like building a big boat when there's not even a flood before. Noah had lived his life obeying God, and he knew he could trust and love God even more. So he chose to obey God, and he made the ark. Because his love for God, he obeyed God and trusted him. Noah and his family were saved from the flood. When we live our lives consistently obeying God, we also grow to trust and love God more. When God asks us to obey him, we can have confidence and obey again and again, even when others around us are choosing not to obey.
God instructed Noah to build a boat, and then told him to put 2 of every kind of unclean animal and 7 pairs of every clean animal on the boat. I am sure getting all of these animals onto the ark was a challenge. But even when it was hard, Noah chose to obey God. Now it's something about, there's a double dog dare challenge. You're going to have this every week. It's kind of cool. Something for you to do at home. But this week, we want you to do something that is hard. It could be anything, but make sure it's something for God. You could read a whole book of the Bible, memorize a hard verse, talk to someone about Jesus, ask someone if you can pray for them, invite someone to church. Even though most of that's going to be online, but it's still a good thing. You know, you can get them on Facebook and show them our church. You can turn from sin. You can give generously to someone in need, or anything else you feel like God wants you to do.
All right. And we've got a couple of memory verses for you this week that Pastor Brandon will put up on the screen for you. And we have a special guest again this week
Another
for you.
cameo appearance. And here is Miss Susie.
Hello everyone, good to see you again. We're talking about Noah and that ark, and one of the things that I remember with this story was a symbol that we would have that God would no longer destroy the earth, and that was a rainbow. And I know a lot of you have seen this. And my grandson did this. We had a rain about a week ago, and a beautiful rainbow came out. Chase said, "Grandma, I'd like to, make a copy of that." So he did, and I've had it on my door, and I absolutely love it. So I would like for everyone to try to make a rainbow, any kind. You could make it with paper. You could use colored paper. There's so many possibilities. Then you can take a paper plate. I didn't have a paper plate, so I used a piece of paper, and I made an ark, and I made the rainbow. And remember, this rainbow is to remind us that God's no longer going to destroy the earth, and that was his promise to us. So when you look up in the sky and you see one, you can remember the story of Noah and how he obeyed God, and God gave us this sign that he was no longer going to destroy all that he had made. I hope you will try it. My challenge to you is to come up with different ways so that when we get back together, we can discuss them and figure out all the different kind of ways that we can make rainbows and mobiles and things. because we need to look out when we do our outreach for other people, and perhaps that would be a way we could, decorate the room in some manner. So I challenge you to come up with different ways of rainbows and all. And I know I have a lot of creative minds in this church ministry, so I want to hear your ideas when we get back together. And look forward to seeing you. You all take care and be blessed. Bye now.